The Alter Rebbe writes regarding his Geula of Yutas Kislev that it was on the third day of the week, on Tuesday, the day when Huchpal Boi Kitoiv, when in the creation it says twice Kitoiv for this day. The Alter Rebbe goes on and says, when I was reading in the Sefer Tehillim, the Pasuk Podav V'Sholim Nafshi, I went out, B'Sholim, I went out in peace. Says the Rebbe, from the fact that the Alter Rebbe emphasizes that it was on a Tuesday, on the third day of the week, this tells us that the content, the idea of the Geula, is also very much connected to the idea of the third day of the week. To explain, by Matan Torah we see that there's a special connection with the number 3. The Gemara emphasizes that it was on the third day, that is the third day of the Yidden preparing, after separating from their wives, etc. It was in the third month, the month of Sivan. Says the Rebbe the same thing by Yutas Kislev. It's the third month. When we start from Tishrei, it was on the third day of the week. So what's the connection with the number 3? We know that the Chiddush of Matan Torah is that before Matan Torah there was this decree separating between the upper realms and the lower realms, El Yoinim and Tachtoinim. Matan Torah, this Gzeira was cancelled, and now there's the connection, the combination and union between the upper and the lower worlds. Says the Rebbe, this is hinted in the number 3. The number 1 represents when there's, right from the outset, there's only one entity, one Metzias, there's only Elikus. Number 2 represents that there's separation, like before Matan Torah, there's the upper realms and there's the lower realms, Ruchnis and Gashmias. 3 represents the harmony and combination between the two. Says the Rebbe, this is also why we say that all of Torah was given last is Shalom Ba'olam, the Rambam says. Because what's the idea of Shalom, of peace? Is again the combination, putting together two things and even two opposite things. Says the Rebbe, the same thing is true with Chassidus. We know that there's the Mayonis, the well springs, the deepest parts of the Torah, which on its own, it's completely beyond, it's completely above. It's completely removed, even as far as the person himself is concerned. His own seichel, his own intellect would be considered completely outside, chutza, compared to the deepest parts of the Torah, which are more connected to the etzem haneshama, to that which is beyond seichel, etc. And definitely when we speak about, compared to the chutza, the outside in the literal sense, and the places that are far away spiritually. And yet Yutas Kislev comes along and emphasizes the idea, this is when the main hafatzas hamayonos chutza started, taking the highest of the high, the deepest parts of the Torah, and the deepest parts of what's connected with higher than seichel, and the essence of the neshama, and connecting that with the lowest of the low, both within the person himself, and also as far as the outside. So this explains to us the connection with the number 3. The Rebbe says this is also why the Alter Rebbe emphasizes that the Geula is connected with Podav V'Sholim Nafshi, because that's what the idea of Shalom is all about, again, putting these two extremes together. The Rebbe says, well, this will also understand why the Alter Rebbe emphasizes that it was in the day Shehuchpal Boi Kitoiv, that Kitoiv was said twice. The Gemara tells us that the twice Kitoiv correspond to Toiv LaShamayim, good for heaven, and Toiv LaBriyos, good for the creations down here. Here again we have the idea that the good is emphasized, that we're combining both together. It's Shamayim, Toiv LaShamayim, Toiv LaBriyos together. It's good for both together. And that's why the Alter Rebbe emphasizes, that's what Toiv LaShamayim, Toiv LaBriyos means, again, this combination between these two things. Combining the highest and the lowest, as we just explained, Yefutzu Manesecha Chutza means. The Rebbe says this idea of Toiv LaShamayim and Toiv LaBriyos is emphasized within Chassidus itself, within the learning of Chassidus. And within the avodah of Chassidus, on the one hand, Chassidus demands that the avodah of being Adam Lamakah, between man and Hashem, should be in the highest and highest levels, like the idea of Toiv LaShamayim, permeated with Chassidus. On the other hand, Chassidus demands Avas Yisrael to every single person, even to the Briyos, like Toiv LaBriyos, even to those people that, as the Alter Rebbe tells us in Tanya, there are some people, all you could say about them is they're Briyos, they're created by Hashem. We can't find many other qualities about them. And yet Chassidus demands Avos Yisrael, even Toiv LaBriyos. Another point, says the Rebbe, that the avodah of Chassidus is connected and also encompasses all Yidden, both the Yidden that are on the highest of highest levels, like on the level of Shamayim, the most spiritual, as well as the Briyos, what seem to be the simple people. And that is, on the one hand, Tanya is here to explain how Karev Elecha Adover Moed, the whole idea of Avodas Hashem is connected to every single Yid, no matter how simple the person is, all of Avodas Hashem is very accessible to him. On the other hand, Tanya demands, the Alter Rebbe demands, that even those Yidden that are on the highest of highest level, like the Shamayim level, Even someone that avodas Hashem became already part of his nature, part of his habit. Says the Alter Rebbe, no, you need to go out of your habit, out of your nature. And that's the only way you're going to be called a true Oved Elokim, a true servant of Hashem. And also regarding this avodah, the seemingly very high avodah, this too, says the Alter Rebbe, is Karoiv Ma'od, is very accessible and very near to every single Yid. Says the Rebbe, based on all of this, we could also understand the connection between the Geula of Yutas Kislev and the Sefer of Tanya. Now, even though the Tanya really was printed 2 years before the Geula, but we say the Geula is very much connected with Tanya. It says that the Geula came in the schus of the 2 years of Chayas that Tanya had given Chassidim in their Torah and Avodah. So the Rebbe explains, let's understand what Tanya is all about. The Rabbeim say that Tanya is like the Torah Shebeksav of Chassidus. Why is it called Torah Shebeksav? It's not only because the Alter Rebbe himself wrote it, as opposed to other Maimorim that he gave over orally and Chassidim wrote down, but rather that Tanya, when we compare Tanya to the rest of Chassidus, it's like Torah Shebeksav to Torah Shebaal Peh. The difference between Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebaal Peh we know. In Torah Shebaal Peh, the most important thing is the understanding of it. We understand the concepts. It's not necessarily we're so particular about how every single word and letter is written down. Whereas in Torah Shebeksav, of course, every letter needs to be written down precisely. It's also very important in Torah Shebeksav specifically that we're saying the words, the letters as they are. In fact, you're even Yoitza, learning Torah, even if you don't understand what you're saying, it's just about the words themselves, the Kedusha of the Oisiyas themselves. Says the Rebbe, this idea of Torah Shebeksav is in fact connected to everything we spoke about, the Chiddush of Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, there was also the concept of learning Torah, but then it was more like the ruchnius of Torah, it was more like the understanding of Torah. It wasn't about so much coming down into the physical piece of parchment and ink. Whereas when Matan Torah came along and combines the Elyonim and the Tachtonim, then the greatest level of Kedusha is coming down, permeating the very letters, the very words, the very parchment of the Sefer Torah becomes now a Chayfet Shel Kedusha, a holy object. Says the Rebbe, the same idea we find in Tanya as well, that it's specifically in Tanya where the Alter Rebbe was so precise over every single word, over every single letter, bringing out again the same idea. We're taking the deepest ideas of Torah, Pnimiyas HaTorah, but it's coming down into the words, into the very letters of the Tanya. Which really is the same Chiddush that we spoke about Yutas Kislev, about Yefutzum and Yisecha Chutz. The whole idea of Yutas Kislev was this idea of taking the greatest well springs and bringing them to the lowest and the furthest place. Another point, says the Rebbe, just like Torah Shebeksav includes all of the inyanim of Torah Shebaal Peh, whether it's the things that are going to be revealed later, and even the things that were learned before the Torah was given are also included somehow within Torah Shebeksav. The same thing is true with Tanya, that it includes all of the inyanim of Torah Chassidus that will be afterwards, but it also includes the things of Chassidus, both from the Alter Rebbe himself and even of the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizritcher Magid, that were there before the Tanya was written. And all of these things the Alter Rebbe is giving over in Tanya in a way that it can be understood in Chochmah, Bina, and Das. Says the Rebbe, from all of this we of course understand the great importance and the great advantage of learning Tanya, and of course learning all of Chassidus, and through learning Chassidus will be Zoicha very quickly to learning Pnimiyas HaTorah, the deepest secrets of the Torah, from Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'Meheira v'Yameinu Mamash.